Author is funded by the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, supporting writers from pen to publication since 1955. To learn more about the PNWA and their yearly conference, please go to pnwa.org. Hi, this is Bill Kenower for Author Magazine, and we're here at the University Bookstore in Seattle, Washington with Ayad Akhtar, author of American Dervish. Ayad, welcome to Author.
Thank you, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Ayad, I know that American Dervish is your debut novel, but by no means your debut creative endeavor.
Right.
In fact, you started as an actor. You studied acting at Brown University.
I did.
Theater, acting, not that it matters.
Theater, yeah, basically. And then once I got out, I was living and working with theater companies in Europe, and so I did mostly sort of the theater thing. But I think that, you know, growing up in Wisconsin, where I didn't really ever go to the theater, film and television was the, so even I think on an unconscious level, my approach to acting was always informed by that kind of naturalism. So I would always get, you know, the note, you know, speak up more
right.
or whatnot, you know, sort of basically like you're in a film. You're not, you're on stage.
Right. And there's something unique about the theater experience, creatively, the challenges of the limitations.
Absolutely.
And you're a playwright now. You've moved on also to playwriting.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about that. What is it to work with those unique parameters of just that box?
You know, the theater is so special because it requires presence, the presence of the audience, the presence of the actors. What is special about it is that the audience and the actors are present with each other. There's a proximity, there's a physicality to it, there's a reality to it. You know, I think it's easy to see the juxtaposition today where we live in a world that is mediated by screens and is really about virtual reality in so many ways. To see the juxtaposition of a theater as an art form, I think it was perhaps 20 years ago more difficult to make that case, but I think now it's very stark, the ways in which theater is so different and such a different experience. I personally believe, and I know there's a lot of people who agree with me, but I would circumscribe it as my opinion, that there is something special about the theater that when it's done well can affect you in ways that perhaps no other art form can.
You mentioned presence, and what occurred to me is that no two theatrical performances are the same. Would you agree? No matter how well rehearsed.
No, yeah, it doesn't.
And it reminds me of the writing experience where no matter how well I know what I think I'm going to write, I show up that day, and then there's what happens that day.
I mean, what you're saying is very profound, and it's about a kind of trust that hopefully you can learn over time to allow what's going to happen. That's a lot of what rehearsal is about setting the parameters in place as an actor so that you can be free enough to allow the audience or the given night, another actor's performance, to affect you in some new way. Giving it life in the present is what makes it alive for the audience. If you phone it in, if you recollect a result that you had on another night and you try to recreate that result, you're not going to have that same spark of life.
But it takes trust. You have to trust there's something there that night that'll be just perhaps as good as what was there the night before.
And you have to trust the emptiness if there isn't.
Yeah. And I did theater for a while, and one of the things I had to learn to do is if I was in trouble, I would listen. Listen, you know, just listen. And writing has taught me that it's more of an act of listening. I don't know if you have that experience, but energetically what I'm doing is more listening than thinking. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It does. Again, I mean, I feel like what you're saying is very profound and subtle, and actually also very simple. But learning how to do that, it takes time, and it does, and it takes. I mean, I'm going to say it again. It takes trust. Yeah, I don't know where you learn that trust, but you just maybe experience gives it to you. You know, trusting and then seeing that if you keep that attitude of listening or that attitude of being available to what is here now, that will guide you over time, and that the results of that process are actually more enduring and meaningful, even from an aesthetic point of view, than your attempts to jimmy a story or jimmy characters into saying or doing what you want them to do.
Can you write a book about a Muslim young man in America and not bring up the fact that he's a Muslim man? Can it not be about that? Is it even possible?
To the extent that I thought it was, I tried. I said it before 9/11.
Right.
20 years before 9/11, and I also it's a book which is it's an immigrant story. It's a dysfunctional family story. It's a conversion narrative in the traditional American sense.
Right.
It's about the American religious experience. All of those things from the Muslim point of view. And so there's I think a universality, or let's say an Americanness to the book, which people find surprising when they encounter it, because I think they're expecting something different.
Right.
So I'd like to say that my answer to what you're saying is in the affirmative, that yes, I can write a book about Muslim America where it's not Muslim America, that it's Muslim American.
Right.
But I think that that's naive, because for me to say that, because of course, so much of the attention that the book has gotten has a lot to do with the fact that the book is really in some ways the first, let's say, mainstream or Muslim American attempt at a narrative that has a larger place within the American culture.
And I think that one of the challenges for religion, organized religion, whatever it is, for the artist, I think it's a challenging relationship, because the artist must be free to say anything. I think that to say it within religions don't want you not to say anything, but they can land on that end of it.
Yes.
And I think it's always a challenge for the artist within an organized religious thought to be true to himself or herself.
I am finding myself very pleasantly seen by you inadvertently. I mean, you're saying things that resonate very deeply with me because of the reaction that the book has created in certain parts of the Muslim community. I think there's this sense that as a Muslim American artist of some visibility, where there's a real dearth of that in the culture today, that I am seen as having some sort of responsibility, and that responsibility is unfortunately seen as or formulated as almost a PR strategy or an optics game, in which I am called upon to reflect back an image of Islam that is going to correct the
Western
misapprehension of misperception of it. And that is a very valiant job. It's just not the job of an artist. An artist, as you said, it needs to be free to wrestle with his or her own demons, the demons of his or her own community, express his or her own raptures, his or her own obsessions, and from that prima materia to be able to fashion compelling narratives, compelling aesthetic experiences, vehicles to an expansion of a certain kind of consciousness, which is not a consciousness of
tribe.
Yes, exactly.
It can't be.
Exactly.
Because if you want to do away with misperception, then we must learn to see ourselves as the soul, as the formless, within form.
It's the enduring preoccupation of literature is liberation.
Yeah.
Liberation from the shackles of illusion.
Yes.
In its deepest sense.
Yes.
And so whatever is moving us all toward that perception is, I think, what ultimately artists are really doing. I mean, some may not articulate it in such a theistic way, but basically that is sort of what we're all doing.
American Dervish is your first novel, but do you plan to write another one?
Yeah, I'm actually writing my second novel now.
Okay, and so what did you learn writing American Dervish that you brought to that book?
I think that what I've learned is that I have to be patient, and I have to allow the story to write itself. I think that writing American Dervish, I put myself through more misery than I needed to, because I constantly felt that it had to be done as I was writing it. And I think that the thing that I've learned is that didn't help me finish the book, having that attitude. If anything, it only slowed me down, because it would create premature solutions and a premature sense of finish, when what was really called for was more expansiveness and more expansion. And so I think understanding the stages the writing stage versus the editing stage versus the rewriting stage. Understanding that those are really very distinct stages. I'm finding that I'm more relaxed in, but we'll see if the results of that are, you know, we don't know what the results of that
Patience is key. I think you have to be patient with the macro and patient with the micro.
Yeah, that's right.
On a similar vein, this is my last question for you. If writing, in
Yeah.
all the forms you've done it, if writing has taught you anything,
Yeah.
it's taught you what?
Similar to what I was just saying, that there isn't an end, that it's always a process, and that the fact that it's always a process doesn't mean it does not have an end,
Right.
but not to mistake the end for that unfolding.